This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 364 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, Kentucky Performance Products, Dr. Rose's Remedies, and EcoVet. Today we have a great nutrition tip from Kentucky Performance Products. Hillary from Dressage Today talks about time management, and we are starting a new segment focusing on dressage tests from the judge's perspective.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Hi, Phil.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you this week?
I'm tired.
It is getting to be that time of the year, isn't it?
We're training a lot of horses all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. Yeah, it is. It is getting to be that time of year. We have a horse show. Our local show is here next week, and then we have 1 week off and then another big local show. So it is we're in the thick of things
Listen to this.
now.
I want to garner some sympathy from all of my Southern friends.
I
I had a horse show this last Sunday where I was, warming people up outside, and it was snowing on me. Snowing, like real snow, like flakes.
Like real snow. It was so cold here on Saturday. There was a couple local shows.
Okay, actually,
I didn't go.
It wasn't a big surprise, but that's May. Where we're at here.
That's why you're Canadian.
There's no snow on the ground, and actually, we've had a beautiful last couple of days. But I don't know why.
We have not. It was so cold here last week. I felt so bad for everybody. I really did. I thought, oh my God, I don't know how they are doing that. So yeah. Yes.
It turned out to be a good show. Everybody did a really good job. So
awesome.
Can't complain about that too much.
Oh, that's so good. That's fantastic.
I was just really excited to get back into it.
Get the party started. Yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
Yeah. I love it. No, it's fun. It's fun to get going and get started. We have a weird sense of it because, I've already shown quite a bit this year. So I'm kind of actually enjoying a little bit of downtime, which is weird, but we're about ready to.
I've been chomping at the bit.
You've been chomping at the bit, and we're like.
And get going and get all those people going.
I hope everyone is doing well and preparing. I hope some of the things we're going to talk about on the show, I think are going to be really beneficial to helping Hillary's segment this month. I think everyone will really enjoy. It's really focused on kind of 5 tips to really help you at the horse show. So I think it'll be great. And Phil, you came up with an awesome idea. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, so I think over the next few weeks or few shows, we're going to try and go through all the levels of I guess it's the United States. We also use the United States dressage tests. Look at the directives, and we're going to be talking to a few different judges about the levels and about the most common mistakes that they see riders make at those levels. And hopefully, help people, even if they don't show these specific tests. I think, everybody's got, same sort of system of classes and tests. So, we're going to go, thinking over the summer about competition a little bit more than training and see if we can come up with some things that are going to help people improve their scores, basically.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So that's going to be the segment. We're going to pretty much go all the way through the levels. So I hope everybody is going to enjoy this. And if you have any questions for the judges, we're going to go this week. We're going to start with intro and training level, and we'll go right on up. So I hope you enjoy this new segment. Way to go, Phil. Good start. So Phil, right after this commercial break, we're going to come back with our favorite guest of the month, Hillary Moore-Hebert, and she's going to talk about 5 things that you can improve at your horse show, especially in regards to time management.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if your horse could enjoy a zone of repellency from pesky flies? Well, he can with EcoVet. EcoVet is an entirely new type of fly repellent that is safe for horses and those applying it, offering a real alternative to toxic pesticides like pyrethrins. EcoVet confuses an insect's normal directional ability, the bug's GPS, if you will. So if it can't locate your horse, it can't bite your horse. Dr. Wendy Ying from the Driving Radio Show has been using it in South Florida, also known as the Jurassic Park of biting insects, and she just loves it. EcoVet's active ingredients are naturally occurring food-grade fatty acids that have been clinically shown to improve the condition of horses with difficult-to-treat sweet itch problems. EcoVet is effective on mosquitoes, ticks, no-see-ums, as well as flies. You can visit EcoVet online at eco-vet.com for more information or to order. You can find EcoVet at Dover Saddlery Stores and EcoVet's on Facebook. Just search EcoVet, ECOVET.
Well, we are all so excited for our favorite segment of the month. Hillary Moore Hebert, our contributing editor from Dressage, today is on. Hillary, welcome.
Hi, guys.
How are you this month?
I'm doing very well. And actually, I'm calling in with you guys. I'm headed off to a show with an FEI horse that I am very fortunate to be riding right now. But we are a couple weeks out now from the first show we went to. And I thought it was interesting for all of your listeners that this is the first year that I had a baby in tow.
Yes.
And so I learned some things that I think will relate to anyone, actually, whether or not you have children or whether or not you show. There's a couple things that I learned. And so here are my tips that I have. I have 5 tips.
Nice.
So
Love it.
The first tip that I learned when you have a child with you is you have to pre-schedule. And I think that especially at home, I don't know if you guys are guilty of this, but it's very easy to go to the barn. And I saw a cartoon the other day joking that now that the change in daylight has come, people have a tendency to stay to the barn, until now. And I think we think that there's a lot to do there because we can always come up with things to do. But really, you can become very efficient in your riding. And the reason that it's important is because you can get into a place where you dilly-dally, so to speak, and you're talking with your barn mates or you're at the show and you think you have all this time, but you're not using as much time as you should. And I think most of us are guilty of this, thinking about and executing the ride properly. So, for example, you get to the point where you suddenly realize you only have an hour left, or you have half an hour in your warm-up left, and you're panicked, and you haven't even thought about how you're going to approach the ride. You kind of rush through the warm-up, and you're doing everything to make sure you're done by a certain time, as opposed to scheduling so that the most important part of everything is planning and executing the ride.
Yeah, no, I think that I have to be honest, I had to learn to do that when I became a trainer or when I had multiple people going to a horse show. Because I for the longest time, it was my sister and my mom and my sister and I usually rode similar times and there's similar classes. And the next thing I know, like I've got to do that. And then I've got students or people that I'm helping or whatever. And, I got really kind of, I figured out how much I was actually dallying at the horse show versus now I have a pretty schedule, I have to be here at this time and here at this time. But I think it's always a good thing to remember. And horses are supposed to be fun. And I think it's good. But I have a rule myself personally that 1 hour before I'm on whatever horse I'm showing, I'm not available because that is my time that I need to make sure that, and every trainer's different and every rider's different, but 1 hour before I need to make sure that I'm back at the barn and that I'm doing what I need to do to get ready, mentally preparing, maybe eating, just certain things where you really take the time. I don't know about you, Phil. What do you do?
I carry a little piece of paper that tells me where I'm supposed to be at what exact time. And then, even though you think you can memorize that sort of stuff, I find myself always sort of looking at that little piece of paper, because whether I'm showing myself or even just a day at the barn, you have to, get things going, right?
Right.
Being efficient, like Hillary said. I mean, you can spend all your time sort of, tacking up, making sure the horse is super brushed or whatever, and then all of a sudden you didn't schedule to have a full ride. So
Right.
I think whether I'm just at the barn or whether I'm at a show, I have to say, okay, tacking up takes 15 minutes, or and it cannot take longer than 15 minutes, and I can't just go and have a coffee. Some days I do, but at this point of the year, it goes from whereas pretty busy in the winter, but then it goes from pretty busy to you have to get things done.
Yeah.
I've got lessons to start at 3 p.m. Those people are priority. The riding has to get done. I can't be halfway done riding a horse and then somebody shows up, or I've got a lesson to do, and that's not fair to other people who have scheduled to come or to have me at their place or whatever. So I think that's part of being, like you said, being a professional. But I think it can help people even if you're just a casual rider, an amateur rider, or whatever. Schedule the time to be riding. Mm-hmm. And then if you have extra time afterwards, whatever, you can do whatever you want, talk, chat, whatever. But if you don't think about it and just say, okay, I got to ride here, then like Hillary said, you're just not going to get your ride in, or you're not going to get a full ride in, or you're not going to get what you actually needed to accomplish done for the day. So think about prioritizing things. And then if you have free time, go ahead, do whatever you want. But
or your instructor can hear you chatting with your barn mates and knows that you're going to be late for your lesson.
That
which
I cannot.
My students are guilty of quite a bit, and I'm always on their case about it.
Well, this is for every student. I mean, sometimes we can be late, and we as instructors, because you have 3 of them on right now, sometimes we understand, you're at an appointment or something, it runs late or whatever, but and I'm with Phil and Hillary, I'm sure you're the same. This time of year, we are literally slammed. So it's like, if you're late, I actually just had someone late. I had a 5 to 6 o'clock lesson, and we had to be on the air at 6. And it's like, I'm sorry, I have to be out literally at 2 minutes till 6 o'clock. I'm out of the arena.
Yeah.
And if you're late, I'm sorry, but you're gonna, so, and again, it happens, and we all know that. But certainly chatting with your barn mate is gonna, make me go insane. Well, I'm just going to charge you. It's like, I'm going to.
But again, if you're having a lesson, I want you to get everybody wants to get you learning things and doing things, and spending the entire lesson because you're a bit late, just doing a warm up, and then we're finally ready to get something done. I feel like, you've sort of wasted your own time and my time with you, and it's not that I'm really mad that you're super late. I'm just mad that we want to get stuff done, right? And we're all motivated by that.
I like it. And having a baby is even harder. And Hillary, as you know, Dr. Anna, who comes on the show, she also just had a baby. So it is a huge event for her just to come for a lesson. Like, it is a team effort to get her here to ride. Mm-hmm. It is hard when you have a little one or children. So, I really... hats off to all the moms out there and dads, because it is very hard. So, yeah. So what's tip number 2?
Okay. So tip number 2 is actually, we touched on a little bit. How is it that you plan accordingly so that you aren't late? There's 2 ways that I do it, because now having a child, I double the time I assume it takes for everything important to do. So if I think I can tack up a horse in 15 minutes, I set aside half an hour. If I think it takes 45 minutes to drive to the show, I assume it takes an hour and a half. I set aside double the amount of time so that if something goes wrong, for example, you run out of, oil or something and your car breaks down on the side of the road, you have time for someone to pick you up. You have something where your boot breaks, you have the time to get that fixed before you get on. Always double the amount of time it takes to do something that's important, so that you have enough time and you're not rushed.
I love
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just budgeting the right amount of time. Yeah. I have this trouble with driving distances, because I say, it takes me an hour and 15 minutes to get here or there. And then I'm surprised that it doesn't. But I always budget like, on a good day, then it takes me an hour and 15. On a bad day, or just something little happens, and then I'm behind. So I've got to take that tip to heart a little bit.
Me too. I have to take that one to heart too. That's hard. And sorry.
Yeah, because more times often than not, that it actually just takes even if it's 10 minutes longer, I should be budgeting a little extra time. So thanks for that one, Hillary.
Yeah, I like that one. How about number 3?
So once you have your schedule, then pack according to the day. So what I do is I lay out everything that I need, and I go through everything that I do for the day, and I check off that I have everything I need based on what I imagine is happening. And this is really helpful because you get to the point where I do this all the time. I will do something like I go to the horse show from the hotel, and I have a habit of putting on my show clothes before I go. And then that way I have less to worry about, except for like 1 time out of 10, I forget to bring anything else. And it's like 1,000 degrees out, and I am then stuck in my show clothes until I get back to the hotel, versus being able to change into like a loose pair of pants and like a comfortable shirt. So if you go through your whole day, once you set the schedule out, you can sort of say, okay, what happens after my ride? Am I going to need something that's warmer because I'll be cold, or, vice versa? Will I want to make sure that I have a different pair of shoes? What is it that I need when I'm riding in terms of my tack and my apparel, so that you make sure that you have everything? And I think that that's really helpful, because it can get down to the point of saying, okay, when we go out to dinner, I might want to have a jacket, and you have everything packed either in your truck or trailer or in your car. So again, you just are more efficient because you're also physically more comfortable, and you're mentally more focused on more important things.
And you're not nervous. I mean, the worst thing is if somebody's like, where's my stock tie? And then everyone's running around, or whatever it is. Like, I mean, or where are my riding pants? Okay. Like it's, somebody's trying to get ready and they're looking for their pants, and you're like, are you, what, what is happening? And so that, I just think it really helps your nerves if everything's laid out. But I'm a little OCD on that one. I lay them out the night before.
Yeah. I have to do it the night before, because otherwise I can't sleep.
I'm a little weird.
I don't know if I've sort of done exactly what Hillary said, and the trouble is that sometimes I'm very fortunate, and Reese is too, that we're very close to the horse shows, and I can go home. But
if I need to.
When I go home, I'm tired, and I'm like, I don't really want to think about what's going on, and the next day, especially after 2 days of a show or 3 days of a show, and I've got to go to the last day. I mean, I have to come home, put everything that needs to go in the wash or whatever, and pack for my next day. Otherwise, I don't sleep well, or and then if you don't get enough sleep, then you're not feeling good at the show, and it just starts to compound the problems. And I think, definitely pack not only what you need for the show, but like Hillary said, pack what you need for the day.
Yeah. Always throw a jacket in. That's what I've learned in Kentucky.
In Canada, always throw a winter jacket in.
Yeah. And your snow boots and hat.
And your toque. Yeah.
And your toque. Absolutely. I love it. No, I think that's a really, really good tip too. Is just be really organized and really prepared, and you're going to be in really good shape. No, I love it. Hillary, what's our last tip?
So I was going to tell you beforehand, true story. When I was a young rider, I actually was more paranoid than you guys, and I used to sleep in my britches.
Wow.
That's cute.
That's intense.
Yeah.
Well, wow. I was so paranoid that I would forget. I've now eased into wearing my show clothes. I just put it on in the morning, so it's one less thing to worry about.
Yeah.
But I used to do it ahead of time. Idea. But I think, that ties us in. I have 2 more tips, but they're really quick. That ties us in actually to my 4th tip, is to do things ahead of time whenever possible. If your horse is comfortable being braided, do it the night before. Put your show clothes on at the hotel. Do anything you can beforehand, because if you get to the point where you realize you're running late or you're nervous or whatever, the fewer things you have to worry about as you get closer to your ride time, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
No, it's so true.
Agreed.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. That's a huge deal. And, and we haven't talked about it, but it's so funny because I am a firm believer, if you can have somebody with you, have someone with you. It just makes it more fun, number 1, but number 2, it really brings down your nerves, and it's not always happening, and you can't always get to your, get there. But it was really funny because my assistant Ashley and I have been showing, as you guys know, quite often in Florida already. So we already have sort of our show routine going on, and she showed last weekend, and it was I didn't go up the night before she went up. It was in Cincinnati. So not super far, but it was far enough. And of course she rode at 8:03. So I like literally said, I will meet you in the warm up. Well, she really struggled because I wasn't there. And I had been there. I felt terrible. Then I was like, gosh, I'm the worst friend / trainer ever. But she didn't plan enough time. She planned enough time like we had planned in Florida, but there were 2 of us. And so it was a big difference. So when I got to the warm up, she was like slightly in a panic and I was like, what is going on? And, you know, we kind of, when we did our show recap, we talked about it. It was like, okay, well, I wasn't there. So, and she had someone with her, but that person wasn't really a horse person. So, you know, I think that that's important, that if there is a change, again, plan for a little bit more time so that you're not getting to the warm up late and getting all flustered and
I think that also brings up a good point about what the role of your coach is at the show.
Right.
You know, I think there's a lot of awesome coaches out there who will lend a hand if necessary. Like you said, you were helping her out a little bit, but in most cases, that's not really our job. You know, and like you just said, I try and say to my people, okay, you get to the warm up with as much time as you think you need, and we'll warm up.
Right.
But I, you know, especially because I teach quite a few people at the same show, and maybe I'm showing myself, you know, I can promise to be at the warm up, but if you're not there, you know, or you forgot your whip or what, you know, whatever, you know, that's what I said. Bring somebody who, you know, isn't your coach. I mean, I had an awesome mom and so did you, Reese, and, you know, who would be that person that we could sort of lean on or say, oh, I need this, or where's my fly spray, and, you know, to go get it or whatever. But, you know, that's a coach is there to coach. I think that's a good point.
But I think also in the same respect, making sure that for people less experienced, don't be afraid to ask your coach for some extra help, so that if it's new to you, that they can help you. But that's even more reason, as you just said, that if you're more seasoned, that you don't expect that help, because your coaches have to focus that effort on people who are new to doing this.
Yeah, I mean, or you know, have a discussion before the show day, you know, to just run through the plan and say, okay, you need to do this there and this there and this there, and if you don't know, like if you run through the plan and everything sounds good, that's great, and you can get to the warm up. But if you don't just have this discussion or help your coach to plan their time if they need to spend a little extra time with you, then it's just going to be a disaster, I think. So.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and I think that, you know, for example, I have an assistant, and so I will send her. I mean, that's her job at the horse show, is to make sure sort of everybody gets where they need to get to on time. Or if I don't have an assistant, I'll bring in a student or someone that will sort of help. That's their job, and that's if we go with a big group, and you know what I mean. Like that's pretty common. But you know, like for example, my assistant is essentially a trainer herself and rides Grand Prix, so. You know, there are times where I'm going to be like, I'm going to meet you in the warm up. So I think you need to have that relationship with your coach. It's super important.
Let them know what you need to support, right?
Yeah. And again, I like that in advance. Just do it in advance so everybody knows what everybody's doing. We have a board, same thing, like everybody knows. And that's if, you know, it depends on who you go with and how many people, you know, in Florida, it was just Ashley and I, so we got an awesome routine. Now that we're back home, you know, the next show we take like 7-8 horses, and that becomes a whole different sort of ball of wax. So, you know, it just depends. But again, don't be afraid to ask for help. And, you know, it sounds like all of us, we're pretty we have to be organized when we go to the show, or it just doesn't run well. So, you know, that's the time ahead of time. If you don't know, or you don't, just ask, and hopefully your group and your team is happy to help you and be a part of it. So. Love it. Hillary, how about your last one?
Okay, so my last tip, I hate to say this, but I have to say this, because for some people it means that you have to spend money. But having been pregnant, I've actually run through 3 pairs of tall boots. I've gone down about 6 camp sizes, and the difference in equipment fit is everything. And I had forgotten that because I'm at a place now where, I have my boots are custom made and I sort of ride in them so often they're broken in perfectly. And, I have my saddle and everything's fit by the fitter and everything. But because I was changing size and fitness so quickly, I couldn't really easily catch up. And so I had a pair of tall boots that, were very loose in the calf at one point before I fit into my old ones. And so my breeches were kind of fitting a little bit wrong. My boots were fitting a little bit wrong. My saddle couldn't be fitting exactly because I just was changing size in literally every inch of, from my feet down to my toes. And it really did not help my riding as much as good fitting equipment did. As soon as I had a pair of boots that actually were attached to my calf, I suddenly felt the horse on my side. I was able to sit the trot better. Just everything worked better. And so it's something where I hate to say it, but, I really am paying attention to that because having the right equipment, I feel like I'm riding another 10, 15 percentage points better when I'm doing a test or the equivalent at home when everything is right.
Yeah, no, I think that's really a good point. And I think this is still kind of early in the show season. And I think it's important to put everything on before you get to the horse show. So if you have gained a little bit or you lost a little bit or whatever it is, you want to feel good in what you're doing. And, thankfully there are enough sales and deals online that you can kind of, if you need to buy a new coat, get a new coat, but feel comfortable. It's sort of like everything, it's if you're going to an event and you have a dress you really love, or when you're getting married and you have a beautiful dress, you feel great. And I think that there's a really good point to that. And you need to feel comfortable in what you're wearing, and you need to feel proud, and you need to, if it doesn't fit right or it's tight or you're uncomfortable, it doesn't work. And I think it's super important to throw those pants, only wear your white pants a couple times a year, throw them on, make sure they fit, make sure that everything's okay. For me, I hadn't worn a shad belly before in Florida for a while. That's the other thing. If you are going to the FEI levels and you have a young horse or a new horse, throw your shad belly on at home and ride around a couple times.
They're used to the tails. Yeah.
Yep. That's a big deal.
That's a good one.
Those are really important things. It's super fun. We always take pictures when we get that ride. But no, I think that's actually a very good thing. And that's the other thing. Just make sure you have everything. Like at the end of the year, usually my hairnets are nasty, so I throw them away or whatever. Make sure at the beginning of the year, the first horse show of the year is always a mess because you're like, where are my gloves? Oh my God. And they're like, oh, I threw this away last year or whatever, whatever it is, that you have everything you need to have and you're ready to rock and roll. So I love it. Phil,
Great.
Anything to add on the clothes
I think that's
fitting?
super tips. Yeah. Yeah. I like
your
it all.
boots, I think. That's the one thing I did want to highlight. If you, whenever you ride in a sport, especially ride in every day, but if you're showing in, if you can't feel your feet or your boots feel tight or uncomfortable, please, for the love of cookies, get a different pair or fix it, because that is just such a disaster. I feel so bad that people do that because you are throwing away your time and money. I mean, you guys, I'm sure you've seen that a million times where people talk about how their show boots or their home boots, they can't feel their calves. They're like dying to get them off. Don't do that. It's not going to make your ride fun or effective.
It's not worth it.
It's true. It's not worth it. Just step it up or get them stretched or whatever.
Yeah, you can get them stretched. Get some zippers put in or
something. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Hillary, as always, thank you so much for the great tips. How do our listeners find you online?
They can check us out, and actually there's a lot of tips related to that. If you guys have the 5 tips that I said, if you do a search by keyword on dressagefit.com, you can find a lot of articles that complement that and help you with that planning. You can also check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to next month and hearing how the horse shows go.
Yep, great.
Dr. Rose's Remedies Skin Treatment Salve and Spray are 100% all-natural products. They are anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal. Dr. Rose's are made with all human-grade ingredients and are safe and effective for treatment for all manner of cuts and scrapes on your horse. And Dr. Rose's is the must-have product here at the Horse Radio Network headquarters to keep PT Scooter's delicate white pasterns free from dew poisoning and scratches. Ask for Dr. Rose's at your local tack store or feed supplier, or visit them online at drrosesremedies.com. That's drrosesremedies.com.
Well, Phil, this is also another favorite segment of ours. Karen Isberg, president and queen of Kentucky Performance Products, is going to come on and talk to us a little bit about how to deal with weight management, especially with wonderful spring grass. So I hope you enjoy. Well, I am so happy for our month's supplement tip to have KPP's president and queen, Karen Isberg, on. Karen, welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you. It's really good to be here.
We always love having you. And, this month, I love the topic because we are currently having a fat kid issue here at Maple Crest Farm. And I know a lot of people are having the issue. The grass is so good. We're getting so much rain and the grass is so rich and so delicious right now. And, we're having to cut back on feed, but we're having some issues. Everybody's having this sort of fat kid issue right now. So help us with this issue for our supplement, our KPP supplement tip of the month.
Okay. Well, I get a lot of phone calls in the spring about this particular topic. And what a lot of people don't realize is that you have to feed a minimum amount of your concentrate. So when the manufacturer formulates the feed, they formulate to be fed at a certain amount. And if you feed less than that, then your horse is not getting the nutrients you think he's getting. And it's mostly vitamins and minerals where they suffer.
So, Karen, let me ask you just a basic question. How do you know what the minimum amount of feed is? Like, how do you know that number?
And that sometimes you have to do quite a bit of investigation, and you even might have to do some math, which most people run into the night when they hear math.
Or you can call Karen, which is what I do.
Yeah. You can look at the bag or the tag, and it's a requirement that feeding directions be on the bag, the feed bag, or on the feed tag. So you look on it and you see what they recommend for feeding directions. Now, I went and jotted a few down that I found. One feed, they recommend you feed 5 to 15 pounds, depending on your horse's needs. So that's a pretty large range. But the minimum
is 5 pounds.
Oh, I don't have anybody.
So if you're not feeding 5 pounds, then you're not feeding enough vitamins and minerals to meet your horse's requirements. Another formula that I found was for one of those light feeds, and it was listed as 1 to 2 pounds per 500 pounds of body weight.
Oh,
so for this one, you have to do math. You have to know how much your horse weighs. You have to divide that by 500. And then you have to multiply 1 to 2 pounds times that amount. So if you have a 1,000-pound horse, then 500 goes into that twice. So the minimum is 2 pounds.
Yeah.
If you have a 1,400-pound horse, the minimum is 2.8 pounds. So it's important that you find out what the minimum is and that you feed to that minimum.
So one other quick basic question too. If you need to know, your horse's weight, give or take, are you okay with using the weight tape?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you have no other choice, then a weight tape will get you in a close approximation.
Okay. And you can get those pretty much anywhere, right?
Anywhere.
Yeah.
And you can also look online, and they just kind of search figuring out your horse's weight. And they'll give you options of using just a regular tape that you would use for, what do you call it? One of those light tapes that you use when you make clothes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And you can
measuring tape.
Yeah.
Cool.
Measuring tape. And you can put that around your horse, and it will give you the formula so that you can use that. So you don't even have to have a real weight tape to do it. You can do it the other way. But it's much better to do that than guess, because most people will guess either that their horse is way too light or way too heavy. So measuring it somehow is a good idea.
Awesome. Okay. So now okay, our horse isn't meeting the minimum requirement. What do we do now?
Well, at that point, you need to find a vitamin and mineral supplement. And Kentucky Performance Products has one called Microphase. And it was developed for just this purpose. It was developed for horses that were eating less than the recommended amount of concentrate, or horses that were subsisting solely on pasture or solely on hay, because there's nutrients missing when you're feeding a single feedstuff like that. So in this product, you feed anywhere from 2 ounces to 4 ounces, depending on your horse's needs. And you feed it once a day, and it's an alfalfa-based pellet that has all the vitamins and minerals that are missing, and you give that to your horse, and you've met his requirements. And it's real palatable, and it's easy to feed. So,
that's pretty awesome, because then you can, if you decide that the best bet is just to take him off of grain altogether, then he can still get his vitamins and minerals, without adding any extra stuff that maybe he doesn't need.
Absolutely. So you don't have to give them those extra calories if you don't want to. And then you can vary it. So if you're feeding just below the recommended amount, you can feed 2 ounces. If you take the grain away completely, you can feed 4 ounces. So there's some flexibility there.
Now, let me ask you this, Karen. So what about energy? Sometimes, if your horse is fat, they're eating, we can't even keep the grass cut here. It's been so wet. So the grass is to the horse's bellies when they go out, and you need the energy. So you don't want to take them off how do you balance that? If your horse is super fat, you can't feed them a lot, but they also are working and they need energy. So what do you do on that?
Well, typically energy, if your horse is overweight, then he's getting enough energy or enough calories. So energy and calories are pretty much the same thing. Mm-hmm. So what may happen as you back off on your concentrate, because with the concentrate in the grass, your horse was in a positive energy balance. When you back off on that, your horse will be in a negative energy balance for a while, but you kind of want them there to lose weight. And then when they get back to that weight that you want them to be, you can either add grain back in, or you could add a fat supplement back in, depending on how you feel your horse's needs are.
And what kind of fat supplement would you add back in?
I would add back in something like Equijil rice bran, because you can feed 1 to 2 pounds a day. 1 pound is 2,000 calories. So you can get their energy levels up pretty quickly with that. And it's also safe because it's low in starch and sugar. So if you have a horse that, gets a little hot on grain, you can give them the Equijil instead, and that will provide the calories they need for work. And also fat calories are a little bit safer than the starch and sugar calories for the gastrointestinal tract, and also for muscle health.
Mm-hmm.
Now, about how long before between evaluating your horse's weight? So you say, maybe I have you out to the farm, or maybe I have a photo and my horse, I determine he's overweight, and then I say, okay, I'm going to change my plan. I'm going to cut back the grain. I'm going to add this vitamin supplement. When am I going to look at him again to sort of determine whether what I'm doing is working or it's not working? Because Reese brought up a good point about, okay, your horse is overweight, and then it's underweight, and then it's overweight. What sort of timeline are we using to evaluate when we're changing grains? Because I know for sure we're going to be doing that every 3 days or so. So, what's your guidelines there?
I would say anywhere from every 2 weeks to every 4 weeks. So, every 2 weeks to once a month, depending on how dramatic a change you made. Because it takes a horse a while to lose weight, and it takes a horse a while to gain weight if you're doing it right. If you don't want them, just like people, you don't want them to lose and gain weight too quickly. So you should make your changes slowly. So I would recommend checking them every 2 weeks to a month.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I have a question about muzzling. What are your thoughts on muzzling? Because this is it's a huge deal. I mean, we're here in the bluegrass, and people come here and oh my gosh, I love this grass. Well, thoroughbreds are meant to go out all the time on the bluegrass, but we have a lot of trouble with warm bloods here. So how do you I mean, what are your thoughts on, muzzling, or do you bring them in, or, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, a lot of it depends on the horse and how they deal with being muzzled. Some horses really get upset when you muzzle them. And it also depends a lot on the type of your muzzle. So if your horse is real upset when you muzzle them and all they're doing is walking the fence, then you might be better off to turn them out a half an hour 3 times a day, bring them in between, and feed them some lower quality hay so that they have something to munch on. One thing you want to be careful that you don't do is starve the digestive tract of fiber. So you don't want to put a muzzle on them where they can't get any grass at all and leave them like that for hours and hours at a time, because that will cause ulcers, just like not feeding any hay. Most horses are very clever about getting grass through the muzzle, and they can actually get quite a bit. So if it's slowing them down enough, then I think that muzzles are fine. You just have to make sure they stay on.
Yes.
Yeah, some are really good. Those ponies seem to be amazing.
Oh my God.
Houdini
I've got a
artists
horse
about
right now.
that.
I have a horse right now. Like, literally, Marcus is so bad. Like, he has not figured out how to get his halters off. Like, he's Houdini. We can't figure it out on how he's doing it. And I have duct taped the muzzle to the halt. Oh God, it's a situation. If anybody has a muzzle, please send it my way, because
they're getting the whole halter off. I know that somebody braided it into the mane. Marcus, that'll work because the mane's a little bit longer. That you have a little ring. You put a ring on the top of the halter, and then you braid that into a piece of the mane, and that seemed to work one time on the situation.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to recommend. You take 2 braids and then you braid them together, and then that's what you put your halter through.
Yeah,
and it helps a lot.
I love it.
The other thing is weaving your muzzle through your halter so that they can't just pull the muzzle off. And pulling it up tight enough. A lot of people don't pull it up tight enough. You want it touching their nose.
Yeah, snug against the nose. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Maybe these are all. I think it's pretty tight. Oh gosh, I was like thinking duct tape the other day, but then he got the whole thing off, so I was like, I'm out. I don't know. So I love it. I'm gonna try that tomorrow. I'm gonna try this tomorrow. So, well, Karen, as always, we love it when you come on the show to talk to us. And how would our listeners find you online?
They can go to our website, which is kppusa.com.
And you're fantastic. Karen is great about answering questions, so use her. She's fantastic. So, Karen, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we look forward to next month's supplement tip of the month.
Well, you guys have a great time, and I hope that you can stay out of the rain long enough to do some riding, Reese.
We hope so. That's when the indoor does come in handy, for sure. So thank you, Karen, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth at TotalSaddleFit.com.
Well, for this week's Total Saddle Fit Tip of the Week, we have our first installment of our How to Improve Your Dressage Test at Every Level. We have Judge Jennifer Roth on, and she's going to talk to us about intro and training level. Well, this evening, to start off our wonderful new segment of going through the levels from a judge's perspective, we have Jennifer R. Roth, Smart R Judge from Ohio. She's also a very well-respected FEI rider and trainer. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Good to talk to you this evening.
Well, we are excited because we were chatting just a minute off air, and Philip said there in Canada, you guys don't even have intro level.
Yeah, we have a couple of walk trot tests. We were just all saying. Also, I just pulled my book in from the car, and so I was just sort of going through it. And unfortunately, I don't have any walk trot riders this year. So I was just saying that we didn't adopt the intro test. So I was saying to Reese the other day, oh well, intro doesn't have canter, does it? And I guess this is good. I need this segment. Right? So it's going to be perfect for everyone.
Exactly. Well, Jennifer, we are so excited to have you because clearly Philip and I are not judges. by any means. And we would love to just kind of get started and, talk about the purpose of the level, some of the common things that you see that are an issue. And we're going to start with the intro level. So take it away.
All right, perfect. Well, I will have to say intro is one of my favorite levels from a judging perspective because it's a place where you can be super encouraging. And, it always seems like the person who gets a high percentage of the show is an intro. So I like to have, a good impact on horses and riders in this place. So the whole, and looking at the purpose of the level of intro, it's basically to introduce the horse or the rider to the sport of dressage. So it's a common place that you see people just wetting their whistles in dressage. Maybe they're coming from a hunt seat background, maybe they're coming from a Western background, or they're just starting riding in general. And this is their first attempt at doing dressage. So it's a great place, an encouraging place for them to be. Or you see the horses that are new to dressage. Maybe it's a good place for a trainer with a young horse to just get in the ring, get it some good experience, some positive show miles. So it's a great place for both horses and riders new to the sport to get in the ring for the first time. And basically it's to show an understanding of riding the horse forward with a steady tempo, making sure it's not speeding up, slowing down, going, fractiously around the ring, a nice steady tempo into elastic contact, and that the rider has independent and steady hands and a correct and balanced seat. It's to show proper geometry. It's the first time, of course, that we see a 20-meter circle or a center line or a diagonal. You're learning where the letters are, basically trying to get from point A to point B in one piece, and to show, correct bend in corners and in circles. So, again, it's just a great place to start out. And I love giving big scores an intro if people are showing that they're on the right direction for how to bend their horse, what forward really is, not just running out of control around the ring. And it's also not crawling around the ring either. Doing good transitions. This is a place, they insist that you do walk into the halt for your salutes. And that's to teach the rider not to just slam on the brakes and pull backwards, but you have to think forward into downward transitions. All the transitions are between letters. So you have plenty of time to get yourself set up, to organize, to, take your time in the transition. And they're just nice, symmetrical, balanced, easy, relaxed tests that, like I said, introduce you to some circles, some changes of direction, some walk, what is free walk. And then with Intro C, we have just a touch of canter. So the canter transition, you do a 20-meter circle, you canter on the first quarter of the circle, and then you're trotting again before you finish the circle. So it's a great place if your horse gets anxious about going up alongside, or if you have a rider that gets anxious about cantering up alongside. You're cantering and then trotting in right on a curve. So it gives people and their animals a sense of control, even if there might not really be any, but it's a nice illusion to be able to get them into and out of the canter. When the things that I see go wrong probably the most for intro is the bending situation. Most of the time I see more beginner riders probably in this level than I do, more advanced riders bringing a younger horse in. So it's more the beginner riders that don't maybe yet have a clear concept of what bending to the inside is. They're generally, making a turn or making a circle by pulling their horse with the outside rein onto the circle instead of keeping the horse's nose looking in the direction of travel and using the leg to push them onto the appropriate, bend for the circle or the corner. The other thing that I very much see are geometry problems. If you look at the back of an intro test, their collective marks are broken up a little bit differently than other levels. They actually have a box specifically for geometry and accuracy, correct size and shape of circles and turns.
I didn't know that.
So it's
we get to learn a lot,
a specific.
I know. I'm like looking at my test book too. I'm like, really? That's awesome.
Really, there's a place just for geometry and accuracy. So it gives us as judges a good way to really isolate and point out to the rider, where their strengths and where their weaknesses were. It has, it's a rider's position. Maybe they sit beautifully, but their geometry was not really all there today. So we can tell them, you're sitting great, you're in balance, but you know what, your circles were a little bit the wrong size, or you need to be better bending on your turns, or, something like that. So it gives us, a better opportunity to kind of direct them where we want them to go. So accuracy is another big one. They're not quite sure where or how big a 20-meter circle is. And I really see that issue when you can tell people are used to maybe riding in the smaller ring versus the larger ring. Even though the smaller ring is still 20 meters wide, the distance between the letters, has varied. In a small ring, the distance from like K to E is 14 meters, where the distance in the large ring, the letters are 12 meters apart. So people haven't really looked at the math of it and really figured it out. But again, they kind of get in the general direction. You're bending sort of the right way. You're in balance. You kind of got from point A to point B. Good for you, cheerleader. Well done. And
yeah,
we really
Jen, I just wanted to bring up a quick thing is that you made a really good point, and I'm really glad you say it, is that judges in general want to give really good marks, don't they? I think people have the perception, sometimes when they go in the ring or when they get their test back, that the judges somehow enjoy being critical or, are afraid to give great marks. But I think when you sit down and you talk to most judges, and this is great that we're going to bring a few onto the show in the next few weeks, is that they're all sort of positive people that get excited about giving good marks and want to see high marks on the scoreboards when you end up at the end of the day, sort of thing.
Absolutely. I'm always looking to give that 80%, and I want to do it. And what I try to explain to my clientele when they get the judges' marks back and they're reading their test, it does seem like everything in the boxes, in the remark boxes, is negative. And what I have to remind people is it's not that the judge is being negative, but when we're educated as judges in this country, we are taught to explain to the rider why the mark wasn't an 8, 9, or a 10. Why did we remove 40% of your score and give you a 6? Why, we can't say good in the box when good is an 8. We have to say, good effort, but lacks a little bit of bend, and that's why you only got a 7.
Yeah, like you said, so it's more of an explanation than a critique exactly. Or something that you should take personal,
Personally, yeah. It's not that we didn't like your saddle pad or, your coat was, ill-fitting. We don't really care about that. But we want to make sure that, you spent a lot of money to get into that ring. You spent a lot of time and effort and heartache, to get there. And we want you to get the most, at least I want you to get the most out of your time in there. So I want to provide a comment for every box. I want to explain to you and give you helpful pointers to be able to go home and make it better and have an even better experience the next time you come. But yeah, I love giving big scores if I can. I don't often enough get to do it, but I really want to.
Yeah. No, and I think that's good. And you briefly brought up the collective marks for intro, and I think you talked about the geometry, but also the gates are not at ×2, which I thought was interesting, and nor is the impulsion. That's different, right, as you get into training level and above, correct?
I have all my tests right in front of me.
I know. I pulled the book out because I thought I didn't know that. I didn't know that those actually submission is a double score. So
yeah, and because submission is the thing that we want to focus the most on, I guess, in intro. That's why it's weighted twice. But because again, rhythm and relaxation are the things that we look for as the basis of our training scale. So we want to see that submissive, relaxed, horse coming in the ring, enjoying its job with a relaxed, confident rider as well. And in talking about the gate score, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say that maybe in a moment after this thought, you could explain submission, because I think it can get confusing. At the different levels, where in intro submission doesn't necessarily mean nose on the ground or nose to the chest, and I think people get sort of super focused on that issue in the early test when it's not really that important.
No, it's not. And, and there's been some talk about actually changing the word submission on the tests themselves, because anytime I go to like a USDF conference or a judging thing, they really do want to change the word submission, because it kind of gives the wrong impression. It kind of gives a breaking of the wills sort of feel to the word. Right. It's like submitting under a heavy hand or a greater power. And it's not really what submission about. It's about, the horse willing and wanting to work for the rider, and doing so with a quiet mind and a quiet body. So, there's, like I said, been some talk about finding a different word or a different phrase that better encapsulates that idea versus, cranking head down and making it do it against its will. Because that's not the point. That's not why we do this.
Right.
Maybe some, but not the majority of us.
No, we try not to. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We try to avoid that. Absolutely.
And I think talk to us about the horse sort of being on the bit at intro level. I think this is also very confusing. So can you tell us a little bit about what you think about that with the horse being on the bit?
Sure. And actually, that's a very interesting thing because in all of our education things, we're actually not allowed to talk about a horse being on the bit until we get to first level. It's not a requirement. If you look at the purpose of the test, it's not a requirement. Now, are you going to get a better score if your horse is accepting the contact with its nose slightly in front of the vertical, it's at least in level balance, maybe even the pole the highest point? Sure, that's going to get you a better score. But is it absolutely a requirement? No. So, it does have to be in level balance. We don't want to see horses going around, with their poles really low and then being downhill because, again, we're wanting to develop horses and riders that move up the levels. So we want to very early on instill that idea that it has to, move freely forward and in level balance, all that other stuff. But it's just generally, going out softly and elastically accepting, a little bit of contact with the bit. But again, it's not a requirement that its nose be on the vertical or slightly in front of the vertical. You can still do quite well, and I've had many clients do quite well with their horses as long as they're steady in the hands and they're going out to the bridle and they're moving forward and they're bending the correct direction. Win intro all day long, So, and that's, again, we're trying to instill basics that will carry on through the rest of the levels, not people trying to teach people to seesaw their horses' faces to drag their noses in because they think that's what the judges want to see. We don't. We don't want to see that force behind it, So
yeah.
We'd rather see a soft, elastic, forward, relaxed, correctly bent ride than a nose cranked in, chomping horse, unhappy sort of situation. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great thing.
No, that's really good. Well, everybody, are we ready to sort of move on to training level? We're moving on to levels.
Yeah, I think
fine by
we're
me.
ready. For it.
So Jennifer, talk to us. So now we're changing gears. We're up the next rung. What's the purpose of training level?
Okay, so the purpose of training level is to, and this is something, again, they changed the test a couple years, 2015, and they revamped the purposes of the test, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So they added in the whole idea, the purpose of training level is to confirm that the horse demonstrates correct basics. Now, that's new, and I think that's a very good distinction to make, that the horse is supple and moves freely forward in a clear rhythm with a steady tempo, accepting contact with the bit. So, again, it's that idea that, correct basics of thinking rhythm, relaxation, bending, stretching to the hands, being eager to going and finding the contact with a relaxed mind and body. Again, just a horse that you can see it is receptive to, coming in, doing its job, happy to help the rider, going around the ring in a clear and steady contact and being all squishy and happy.
So
now, squishy is not a real dressage term. Don't quote me on that.
Right, squishy and happy.
We like it.
So what are some of the requirements movement-wise, and now we're talking training level?
Sure. It's, again, basic walk, trot, canter. No circles are smaller than 20 meters in both the trot and canter. All the training level tests have, walk, trot, canter, obviously both directions. They removed the stretchy circle out of training 1, and I think the reason
the Lord.
You're not the only one that thinks that way. Yeah, it was to make the gap between intro and training a little friendlier. People got a little, felt that throwing the reins away if they weren't quite ready was a little daunting. So, removing the stretchy circle kind of gives it a little bit of a warmer, fuzzier feel per se. But the stretchy circle is a requirement in both the training 2 and training 3. And again, there are no real movements. It's just, cantering a circle each direction, Training 3 has that loop, the gentle loop from the corner letter to the X and back. And that's just to demonstrate clear changes of bend with the horse is laterally supple. You go across diagonal. Again, the walk is a medium walk and a free walk. And your halts, again, can be done through the walk. And I actually encourage my clients to take a couple steps of walk into and out of the halt. You're not, you don't have to slam into it. It's not a requirement that you go trot, halt, and, halt, trot. Take that step or two of walk to settle the horse and let it relax into it. Because, again, you want to be thinking forward into a halt transition, and then letting it take a walk step or two, coming back into the trot. So it's a smoother performance, keep things fluid. And again, it's just on the bit is not a requirement. It's level balance. It's accepting contact with a bit, moving freely forward. Again, it's just the idea of not being constrained. Of course, if you want to get that 80%, your horse is probably going to have to be on the bit and be, a decent mover, a good mover. But yeah, it's not a requirement. But you have to be bending to the inside, to get a good score. Your transitions have to look fluid. Having a horse that is, appropriate mover for dressage is always a good thing. As a judge, the first thing we look at is the quality of your horse. Our score starts with the quality of your horse. So if you have an 8 mover, you're going to start with a baseline 8. Now, if you do something fantastically, then your score can go up. Or if you do something not so fantastically, your score is going to go, down a bit. But if you're only starting with a 5 or a 6 mover, then it's harder to get, on some of the movements that require a good mover, a higher score. But again, training level is just a place where, horses and riders are just getting used to the idea. And actually, the gait score nowadays, through all the, at least, that I have here, intro training and first level, the gait score is only 1. So it's only times 1. It's not a double coefficient anymore. So it's not as heavily weighted as it used to be. That's something else they changed in 2015. But submission and impulsion are double coefficients. And then the rider's position and seat is also a collective mark. And the correct and effective use of aids of the rider is also a collective. Those are each times 1 as well.
Jen, can you talk to us a little bit about corners? Because there's no real marks for corners, but I think they're very important to a test and to the overall flow. And I think that the judges do take a look about how you're riding your corners.
Absolutely. So what we look at for corners, don't come in and try to do a Grand Prix corner. You don't try to go do that 90-degree turn, because at training level, probably your horse isn't well enough balanced just yet, or, maybe the rider doesn't have a completely clear idea how to really balance the horse between the inside aids and the outside aids. So it's actually going to throw you more off balance. So when we talk about corners, they should be equal to the smallest size circle in your test. So what is the smallest size circle or half circle you do in training level? Well, it's actually the final turn down center line. It's 10 meters. So that final turn down center line, that half of a 10-meter arc circle to your center line, is the smallest figure in a training level test. So your corners should be probably no deeper than a quarter of a 10-meter circle, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And something else and speaking of corners, something else that I really see a lot of in all the levels are when people are making a circle either at A or at C, they forget that once you've started your circle, you do not go into your corners. So many times people will go into that corner after they've started their test, or go into a corner or started their circle, or whatever. You don't have corners on circles. So really look at the geometry of what a 20-meter circle is supposed to look like at A and at C, and know, where you're supposed to hit the rail. If you're doing a 20-meter circle, say at A, do the math. You have to hit the rail 10 meters up the long side. So your distance from your corner to your first letter is 6 meters. So the distance between the first letter and the second letter is 12 meters. So we have to hit 10 meters. So you're going past the first letter and then another 4 meters. So a third of the way between the first letter and the second letter, the corner letter and the second letter, is where you want to hit the wall just briefly and then come off the wall again. So really think about the math when you're riding your test. It's too easy to give away valuable points that are unnecessary if you just thought about, how far up the rail should I hit, and look to that place and ride to that place. So don't ride corners on circles is the mantra.
Yeah. And but remember to ride your corner after your corner, like after your circle is finished. Then you should typically ride, or before you started. Yeah. Those are the times to ride the corners. So I think you do have to think about that.
Yeah, and corners are really important because it sets up your long side. So it's appropriate for you to ride a corner. Remember, your corner is a place to rebalance your horse. It's a place to set up for the next thing that's coming. So don't skirt the corner because you're in a hurry to get out of the ring because you're nervous or whatever. Use the corner as a place to set up the next movement, rebalance your horse to the long side, get the horse's attention back on you, establish your bend. I really like the corner, especially coming from the medium walk back to or the free walk back to the medium walk, because I like to really use that corner, get nice and deep in that corner, because it adds extra strides and gives you a little bit more time to set up for that transition from the medium walk back to your working trot. But yeah, corners are a very important place that people often fail to utilize, and it comes back to haunt them because they're not as prepared for what comes next in the test, for sure.
Right. So I have one question on the stretchy circle. The stretchy circle gets people all the time. Could you talk to us a little bit about that stretchy circle?
Absolutely.
We could talk for days on that stretchy circle.
Yeah. The horrible. Yes, we could have a whole segment on the stretchy circle, but a brief, what are you looking for in the stretchy circle?
Okay, well, no problem. And actually, interestingly enough, the stretchy circle, when it first appears in Training 2, is not a double coefficient. It is a double coefficient in Training 3, but it's not a double coefficient in Training 2, which is nice, so that, again, people get the idea without maybe getting crucified if they're not quite doing it right. So, what we're looking for, again, people pull out your test, read your test, not just the test in Winnie Widgets or whatever, but actually get the physical test, because if you look at the test sheet you get back, right next to each movement or box, there are the directive ideas and what, the judges are looking for. So when you look at the stretchy circle, a forward and downward stretch over the back into a light contact, maintaining balance and quality of trot, bend, shape and size of circle, and willing calm transitions both into and out of the stretch. So a thing that I see all the time is people throwing their reins at their horse and praying that it works out okay. And that's really not the way that, you should be doing it. Again, this is a place to go back into the idea of the purpose of the level of training level to confirm that the horse demonstrates correct basics. Now, a correct basic, is that the horse is seeking the contact. And what we're looking for is that when you relax the reins, if you give it a little bit longer rein, the horse still seeks the hand. It stretches forward and downward looking for you. And we want you to keep a light contact. We want you to still be functional in the stretchy trot. You still should be bending it. You still should be half halting it. You should still be keeping communication going with your horse. All too often, like I said, I see people come to the stretchy circle. They throw the reins at it. They pray it works out. The horse speeds up, looks to the outside, sort of puts its head down, and then does a wilderness alert and is looking off into other places in the show ring or the warm up for its friend, whatever. And, it didn't have to be that way. So keep a light contact, play the bit, encourage the horse to stretch forward and downward, make sure the tempo doesn't vary. It can't speed up. It can't slow down. But like I said, the thing that I see the most of is just throwing the reins at it. Don't throw the reins at it.
No.
Feed it slowly out. So, and also something about the stretchy circle I think people don't understand is that break it up into quadrants. So there are 4 quadrants of the stretchy circle. The first quadrant, the first quarter, is to develop the stretch. All right. So you have that first quarter of the stretchy circle to start to give it the reins, get it down into that nice stretch. And the second and third quadrants are to demonstrate the stretchy circle. So the second half of the circle, or the second and third quadrant, you're demonstrating the stretchy circle. And then the last quarter of the stretchy circle, you're reorganizing the horse. So you're starting to pick it up. By the time, when you hit the center line, reapproaching, the side letter, for instance, You should be shortening your reins and putting the horse back together. It's not wait till you get back to the letter to pick the horse up. It needs to be back together by the time you hit the letter. And that's something everybody seems to forget as well. So break up your circle into 4 quadrants and utilize it as such.
Oh, well,
Nice.
that's
I
very
love it.
helpful. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's really helpful for me too, because that's a great way to think about that.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, thank you
Hang
so
on, I have
much.
one more question, Reese. I have one more question.
Oh,
Oh,
Phyllis has a
excuse
question.
me,
Yes,
Phil. Go,
Phyllis.
Phil. Last word, Phil.
Last question. It's a quick one. Why do we have coefficients? Talk to us a little bit about the coefficient of 2, because it seems to always be in the walk, you know,
Yes.
all the way up to Grand Prix, I think.
Yep, it is. Well, there are a couple of reasons. Well, so in different places in different tests, they put the double coefficients because those are the places that they want to stress importance. Now, the walk is a double coefficient. You know, some people will say it's the most important gait. Some people will say it's only because we don't see very much of it, so we have to weight it, you know, times 2, because we see a lot of trot, we see a lot of canter. We don't see a lot of walk. And I think it's a combination of both. You know, it's an extremely important gait, and, you know, also we don't see very much of it. So it's always heavily weighted in all the tests. And then in all the other tests, you know, you have double coefficients in different places because they wanted to stress that area. It's just to draw attention to places that the test riders and, you know, for the basics and purposes of the test that are important. So, like in training 1, you know, the first circle to the left is a double coefficient. The free walk is a double coefficient. And then the right trot circle is a coefficient. So, double coefficient. So, they want people to focus on that. And then it changes up a little bit, like for training 3. You know, they want to stress a different area. So, it's the stretchy circle and it's the free walk in training 3. So, you know, it's to show importance. It's to make people pay attention. You know, they think that
so
if,
I just
they
wanted
make it worth.
you know, people to practice those things because they are double important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are doubly important. So, you know, and the same thing with behind, you know, the collective marks, you know, impulsion and submission are both double coefficients. Gaits, rider's position, and correct and effective use of aid, those are only single coefficients. So, again, they're stressing the importance of impulsion and submission. Again, we don't like that word anymore, but impulsion and submission, because they're really important. The other stuff you can, you know, vary just a little bit. We hope it's all good. We want to give everybody 8, but if it's not, then we want to be able to explain to you why.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for doing our first segment on our going through the tests and intro and training level. How would our listeners find you online?
Yeah, well, I'm always on Facebook. I'm kind of addicted to that one. I'm Jennifer R. Ross. There are 2 Jennifer Ross, so I'm the Ohio one, the lowly R, small r. But Jennifer R. Ross on Facebook, and my barn, my LLC is Milestone Farms, also on Facebook. So feel free to come and like my page. It's a bunch of cute pictures of ponies and ribbons.
Awesome.
And then, of course, you can email me. I'm revamping my website, so it is not operational currently because I was horrible and hadn't updated it since 2013, and a lot has happened since then. So I've been a better person and farmed that out to somebody who's not technologically impaired like I am. So I will hopefully have a website up and going here soon that people will actually find useful. But probably Facebook is the best way to find me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been fun.
This tip brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, the shoulder relief girth that Reese and Philip both love. And here's why.
The saddle fit solution you have been waiting for is finally here. TotalSaddleFit.com is proud to introduce the Shoulder Relief Girth. This strategically shaped girth actually moves the girth line of your saddle back over 1 inch, thereby freeing your horse's shoulders from the saddle. Traditional girths pull saddles up against a horse's shoulders and often over the top of the shoulders. The Shoulder Relief Girth's recessed ends allow for the billets to buckle into the girth farther back to give your horse unparalleled freedom of motion. We are so certain that your saddle will fit better and your horse will be more comfortable that for a limited time we are offering a 30-day, 110% money-back guarantee. If you are not totally satisfied with your shoulder relief girth, send it back for a full refund plus 10% of the purchase price. Don't wait. Order now for the best saddle fit solution available.
At TotalSaddleFit.com. Visit TotalSaddleFit.com.
Well, we want to give a shout out to Nikki Lambert. This comes from the Horse Radio Network auditors page, and Philip and I get to be on this page. And wow, everybody has such a great time.
We get a lot of love from this page, which is why we're always looking at it, right? So,
it's been. I know it makes me feel. I'm like, wow, this is great. But we also get some comments, and we also get, some ideas. So it's really cool. The auditor, you can become an auditor, go to the Horse Radio Network. It helps keep the programming going here at the Horse Radio Network, and it's really cool. But this comes from Nikki Lambert, and it's actually to multiple hosts: Jamie Jennings, Helena, Wendy, Reese, and Philip, and the rest of the hosts and guest hosts are beyond fantastic. I know I'm not alone in saying how much we enjoy what you do and offer to the horse world. You rock. Well, Nikki, thanks so much for making our day. And Philip and I love
that made our day for sure.
Coming on. So thanks so much for making our day. We love that. And we always love coming on and enjoying spending our Thursday evening with you guys here at the Horse Radio Network. And as always, you can find those show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
The best way to find me is on Facebook, or my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for allowing us to put on a great show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we will talk to you next week.